good afternoon. Welcome to my living room on the lawn.
Thank you.
I'm Christian Garcia. I'm the Associate Vice President for Career and Professional Development, and I'm here with a special guest, my boss. You want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Nicole Hall. I serve as Senior Associate Vice President of Student Affairs and Dean of Students.
Excellent. And I arranged beautiful weather for us today.
Thank
It's
you.
like almost balmy on this winter day. It's amazing.
Beautiful.
Right?
Absolutely
so,
beautiful.
I want to make my office here. So Nicole, you used to be in my role as the AVP for Career and Professional Development, and now you're serving as our Dean of Students. So what is that like, and what are some of the things that you talk to students about, some of the things that they are experiencing as UVA students?
Yeah, it's been really amazing to make the transition into the role as Dean of Students, and I think the thing I love the most is I'm getting to engage with students in all facets of their experience. And so yes, deeply focused on career still, but very much focused on social, academic. And so one of the things that's been great is to have a chance to talk with them about just overall their experiences at UVA, but also their aspirations once they get beyond the institution. And so some of the things that I hear them really thinking about is a lot of their impact here while they're at UVA. Many of them, as you know, are so active in clubs and organizations and pivotal leadership roles on grounds. And so I think they are continually thinking about what's the impact that they can have. And so it's been really neat to be on that journey with them. But I think also there's a lot of focus on how can we continue to make this an exceptional experience for the student body.
Yeah.
And so I love the innovation, the ideas they have around programming, and the opportunities that it provides for people like you and me to be able to partner with them
Absolutely.
to bring all of that to life as well.
So you talk about impact and the impact that they're making on their peers, their legacy that they will live here. Do you think that they're taking time to think about the impact that they're making on themselves, that these experiences are having on them? And how does that look, or how can they leverage those experiences and impacts for their own career development and professional development?
Yeah, it's funny. I would say I have found a little bit of a mixed bag.
Yeah.
I think there are some students who are really mindful and somehow magically are finding time to reflect and to really think about the way that they're growing through the process, through everything that they're contributing. But then in other cases, I think I've had conversations with students where I end up kind of reminding them like, wow, you did this thing and it was amazing and it made an impact, but what does that really reflect as far as like how you have grown and developed? And so I guess I would encourage students, especially since they're coming back now for the spring semester, re-engaging with their activities, it's a great time for them to think about, are there tangible skills that they are developing through those experiences? Are there even new experiences that they can take on, maybe things that would help to further stretch and help them to grow? Then the thing also that I think a lot of times any of us, including students, might take for granted are the relationships that we have. And so I would encourage them to really invest in their relationships, whether it's peer-to-peer with faculty, or reaching out even to alumni. I just think this is a great time for them to be able to shore up those relationships, and that can lead to new experiences.
Absolutely. We talk a lot about the greater good here at at UVA, which is wonderful. And yes, that's who we are, right, as an institution. But that doesn't mean that we can't, or that students shouldn't think about themselves as well, in terms of like, okay, I've done all these things and I've done it for the greater good. I've done it for my peers and to leave a lasting legacy. But that it's okay to stop and say, how can I position these things to get me to where I want to go?
Totally agree.
And you said it right, utilizing alumni and other folks at their disposal to pick their brains and to kind of see, what do you think about this? Or how was your experience? What would you recommend? Those kinds of things I think is really important.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it's a good time. I mean, I know you and I have talked about this, that when you're a student, there's nothing better than being able to say, I'm a student, can I get your advice? Can I get your help?
Right.
And so I do think if they're able to lean into those networks and build even more connections, it'll be really powerful.
Absolutely. So we are in a time where there's a lot of talk of, this job market and the challenges that we're facing, the job market in general, but also for new talent or early talent. Things like what's happening with our government in terms of, positions being taken away, internships, full-time opportunities, but also the impact that AI is having on this job market and how people are hiring and doing the work, which could be extremely, deflating or frustrating or just scary to students, right? So what do you think are some of the skills that students should have to get through this moment
Yeah.
and for the rest of their lives, because
Yeah.
this is life, right? Things
Absolutely.
are going to happen. Things are going to be thrown their way.
Absolutely, yeah. I think I tend to think of skills in a couple of different categories. One is I definitely want them to always focus on building relevant skills that will literally prepare them for the job they want to do. And obviously that's going to vary based on their major and the specific role. And so that those technical skills are important. But I think even more so, the second category of skills that are just going to help them navigate are going to be really important. And so I think focusing on their own communication, shoring up the way that they interview, shoring up their confidence level with networking with people, I think is really important. But then also I think about feedback I've gotten from employers that when students come out into the workforce, oftentimes like navigating difficult situations or how to manage a relationship with their boss. I think this is a good time to really take time to talk with upperclassmen, to talk with alumni, and find out how they're navigating so that those can be some intentional skills that they work to develop now when they're not in a situation where they have to, in a meaningful way on a job, for instance, or in grad school, call on those skills.
I couldn't agree more. I'm surprised still to this day that oftentimes I'll hear from students when it comes to this idea of networking and asking for help, well, I don't want to bother anybody. I don't want to burden anybody. People are so busy. And I'm like, take advantage of it now, because like you said, you're a college student. People don't want to say no to college students, right? We can all resonate with that experience. We've all been there, right? Those of us who went to college. And to have that opportunity to seize it, right?
Yes.
And it also creates good habits of asking for help. Right? It's one thing to, think you need to know all the answers. That's a lot of pressure to put on your shoulders, and nobody expects that, right?
Yep.
So if you can ask for help now, I think it creates good behaviors. You get into the habit of asking for help in the future when you're on the job and you're having a difficult time.
I'm curious, how you help to encourage students to reach out, because I think sometimes they're like, I don't want to bother, but it's also like, I'm a little scared to reach out. What do you tend to advise them?
What I tell students is take the pressure off of you. So rather than you immediately asking for help, ask the person about them. Because people love to talk about themselves and the work that they do, especially if they love what they're doing. You'll see people light up. So don't go into it automatically saying, hey, I need to find a job. Or, how can you help me get, can you open a door for me? No. Have a conversation, just say, tell me a little bit about yourself. Why did you go into advertising? Why did you choose that? Or, how was it being in, all these organizations when you were here at UVA? How did you manage all of that? And then also find the time to apply to graduate school, because now the pressure's off of you, you get to listen. And I guarantee you that the conversation is going to swing back to you. They're going to be just as inquisitive about you as you are of them. I also like to not use the networking word. I just feel like it turns off so many people. It turns off the average adult who's been doing this for many, many years. Because I think it has these connotations of like, I need to collect as many business cards as possible. I need to work a room and I need to be this super extroverted person. It doesn't have to be that, and it's not necessarily that. I think that's an outdated way of looking at networking. For me, it's about connection. And I'd rather, someone make a connection with 2 people that goes deep than with 100 people where all you're doing is just collecting business cards and just spamming people on LinkedIn, right? You have to be intentional about it.
I think that's such good advice. Yeah, and I really like you kind of just reminding about the connotation of networks, because you're right. I've talked with students who they may go to an event, they have conversations that feel comfortable, but they're like, I didn't come out of it with an internship. And it's like, you weren't supposed to.
Exactly.
So you're right, alleviating that pressure and really just being curious and interested in getting to know other people and understanding like what they do. So yeah, I love that advice.
And I think there's this idea that introverts can't be good networkers or they can't make connections with people. I think that's not correct. I think it's all in the setting, figuring out what works best for you. Maybe big events aren't for you, and that's okay. People think, I could be very extroverted, but having to work a room, it takes a lot of energy for me. I'd much rather have, a smaller group. So it depends on what you're interested in, but also finding other people who can connect you to other people in their network.
Yes.
So that way it's a warm contact as opposed to just calling someone out of the blue.
Absolutely.
So I just
Yeah.
think it's about reframing what networking is all about.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, and I try to also encourage students to, like, if they can make it as easy for themselves as possible to do so. So if they've already talked with someone, they had a great conversation, why not at the end of the conversation just say, you have a better sense of the type of information I'm gathering and what I'm hoping to learn about. Is there anybody else that you think would be helpful for me to talk with?
Yep.
And 9 times out of 10, that person will have someone they can recommend you to. So yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
They're surprised, and I'm like, what's the worst that's going to happen?
Right.
The person doesn't respond because they're busy.
Yeah.
They're not going to say no.
That's it.
You know what I mean? And so
That's it.
I think that's important. So I wanted to shift gears a little bit. As the dean of students, you're interacting with students. I know we've done events together, and your calendar is crazy. But when I think about all the different topics that can come up as the dean of students, right? I'm sure you're seeing the gamut of it. But as we get up further along this semester, we're going to start seeing kind of the students getting a little anxious about that job search, right? Even though some of them have already started that, for some industries started in the fall. What would you tell students, or what do you tell students who come to you and say, I'm having a hard time because what I thought I wanted to do, or my plan was, is no longer my plan, because I'm not interested in that anymore, or it's something out of my control, or it's just not realistic anymore based on, any number of factors. How do you help students, or what's the messaging you tell students in that when it comes to pivoting without it becoming this like end of the world or this really disappointing kind of feeling that students sometimes have?
Yeah, and that is, it's such a difficult moment, and you and I have been in this field for a really long time, and that's a significant moment for students to figure out what in the world are they going to do. And I think the thing that I tend to focus on is I really want them to be true to themselves. I think in a moment like that where you have to make a pivot, it's easy to look around and see what your peers are doing. And so I really want them to put up blinders and really stay authentic to themselves, to think about, what is the type of thing that I want to engage in that's going to be meaningful for me. I also try to encourage them to take the pressure off of whatever they are trying to secure. So if it's an internship, if it is a first-time job, it's just the first, it's not the last. And so really focusing on, does this opportunity offer some skills, some things that I can use to grow? Because really I tend to think about career not so much in titles and advancement, especially early on, but really more so, am I applying skills? Am I growing in a significant way? And that may not necessarily be the title that they thought they would have when they came out of their degree program, but it's going to be a meaningful job that will let them grow. So I think they've got to take the pressure off themselves. The other thing is to really try to put themselves in a posture of being very open and just wanting to explore and to find some things that would really be interesting to them. I often challenge students, rather than looking at a job description or thinking about a certain title, literally think about, like, how do you want to spend your time?